It was only a meth lab if it had porn, Indian artifacts, and a dream catcher hanging on the wall.
Oh,
A blue funnel. A blue
Oh.
funnel.
Hey, Sean.
What's up, Howard?
Man, I tell you what's up. Heat. This summer is full force.
It is brutal.
Well, I mean, I know you've been on the golf links playing a little bit, huh?
I have conditioning myself.
How's your game coming?
It is. It's coming all right, man. Still relatively new to the sport, or actually, I am new, and I don't even know if I actually call it a sport, but I'm new to golf. A little less than 2 years now, and my goal this year is to not break into the triple digits anymore. So stay 90s and below, and then hopefully next year it's all in the 80s. So actually played today and shot an 88. So far so good.
I know you're it up with the golf like I'm it up with the mountain bike.
That's correct.
Hey, but we got a good guest for us today. Actually, this guest is from, maybe you don't know this. My little standing joke is when people ask me where I'm from. Where do I say?
Arkansas.
Yeah, L.A.,
Oh, my
Lower
LA,
Arkansas.
Lower Arkansas. Yeah. Well, speaking
Yeah.
of mountain bike, this dude looks like a mountain man.
He does, man. He's got a voice deeper than both of us put together.
Yes, absolutely. Like we were kind of joking with him before we went on air. It just sounds like puberty kicked in recently, and his voice dropped, and he's got facial hair and probably hair in other parts of his body. Girls give him a funny feeling now, things like that.
Yeah, that funny feeling
Yeah,
is wonderful.
I actually shaved this morning.
Well, this gentleman's from my neck of the woods, where my dad's family from, around Monticello, Arkansas. We have lots of police officers on here that are from big areas like L.A. and New York and those big jurisdictions. And we've got somebody here who has a little bit more, I guess we could call rural, is what would be the best way to put that.
Yeah. Well,
Absolutely.
before you actually even introduce the guest by his name, just last night I was looking at something that was put out. I don't know if it was one of the news agencies or something, but it was talking about the 10 states in the U.S. where people shower the least.
Okay.
And I'm just going to put this out there. I'm going to just say it. Oklahoma was not on that list. Arkansas was. And I'm dead ass serious. It was. It was on that list. So just saying that, saying.
Fake news, man.
Take it for what it is.
That's just fake news.
Take it for what it is.
Didn't happen like, hey, who else was on the list? I want it. Mississippi was on the list.
Kentucky, New York. I think West Virginia was number 1, if I remember correctly. But it was a lot of southern states.
We just don't like the baths.
I guess. I don't know. It's
We
pretty
just
humid
naturally
there.
smell good.
There you go.
Well, we got Brent Reaves on today. He is he's going to be our guest. He's from, he actually lives in Cabot now. Cabot, Arkansas. Are you familiar with Cabot, Arkansas?
I am not familiar with Cabot, Arkansas. I don't know if anybody listening is familiar with Cabot, Arkansas.
It's right out. Cabot is right outside of a big city in Arkansas called Little Rock.
Oh, I am aware of Little Rock.
Yeah, so
Little Rock's the capital of Arkansas.
Man, you are good at geography.
I did pay attention most of the time in school.
I thought the only place you knew in Arkansas was Fayetteville.
I know of Fayetteville. I know what Siloam Springs.
Siloam Springs. Yeah, that's another one. Yeah.
So I'm doing well so far.
Those happen to be about an hour away from us. That's the only reason you know
true.
about that.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Reaves, welcome to our show.
Oh, thank you.
Well, we always have a drink on this podcast. Our guests don't always have a drink, but we always have a drink, and we let you choose the drink this time, and we told you couldn't choose Apple Crown. Because that's off the
because
list.
you have a beard.
That's
right.
You're
not allowed to drink it. You're not allowed to drink it. Probably stand when you pee also.
Yeah, absolutely. Not like Quincy.
Yep.
If I can.
All right. So what did you pick for us to drink this evening?
Oh, I was gifted last Christmas some bourbon that's actually made north of the Mason-Dixon line up in Chicago. And it's Koval, however that's properly pronounced. But it is it's pretty sporty. That's it right there. Koval, however you want to say it. But it's good whiskey, and it'll make your truck drive funny before you know it if you ain't careful.
Well, we're going to be the judge of whether this is good whiskey. We had a bottle, and it was pretty emptied, so Sean and I have very discerning palates when it comes to bourbon. So
hot.
Well, yeah, hot, spicy, orange. But here's to you, sir. Cheers.
Cheers.
Oh yeah, thanks guys. Thanks for having me on.
All right.
His pour is a little bigger than ours.
Look like he drinking iced tea. You know, what do you think, Sean?
It's actually not bad.
It is. It's got a little syrupy flavor to it.
Yep.
It'd
Yeah,
probably
I'd
be
have
good
that.
on pancakes.
It would.
It would be. I actually have some Pappy's syrup.
I know they make that.
Yeah, I actually have some. My mom got it for me for like Christmas a year or two ago. I've never tried it yet, like a lot of my bourbon.
Well, Sean, a little known fact about Sean. Sean is he's kind of a good cook. He's really good at cooking
Breakfast, that's my go-to.
But he's like a firefighter when it comes to cooking breakfast. He only can cook like 4 or 5 loaves of French toast at a time. So, I mean, if you ever have over to Sean's, you got to eat like 9 pieces of French toast for breakfast.
That's
Just
it.
a little known fact there.
That's how you end up over 6 feet tall.
That's right.
You eat breakfast.
Yeah.
Pappy,
Well,
Pappy
you eat biscuits at my house, and that's how you get 6 foot wide.
All right, sir. Tell us how you got into law enforcement.
Well, I tell you, I don't come. I have my brother, my oldest brother, worked for the state police not long after he got out of high school as a dispatcher and a radio operator. I had a first cousin who was a trooper, and a lot of military folks in our background, in my family, served in the military, and it was just more or less something that I knew at a young age. I had decided between when I grew up, I either wanted to be a stunt man or a policeman. So I became a narcotics cop, and I kind of did both. So it was kind of an easy career path to follow. And it's been 31 years now, working on 32 years now.
So you're on the backside of your career.
I hope so. I hope I'm getting close to the end of it. It's I could have actually retired last year, but I've got a good job now where I'm at. There's not a lot of stress. All the door kicking days are behind me now, and it's a good way to ride it out, ride off into the sunset.
Yeah, for sure. I mean that type of stuff. I guess the exciting part, the fun, as you said, the door kicking, those type of things. That's the young man's job. I mean, it is. Don't get me wrong. There's guys that do it long into their career.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the goal. If you're going to be a 30-year cop, a 35-year guy, man, the last side, you've put your time in, you busted your ass, you try to find that spot that you can, kind of kick back, still be productive, but the department kind of rewards you with a nice little spot to ride out towards retirement.
Yeah,
which is always good.
Exactly. I was talking when I got into this position. It's almost 8 years ago now. I was in it a couple of years, and you're used to that, just slamming, banging all the time, stress and adrenaline, and you're just going full speed all the time. And when it slowed, it went from 100 miles an hour to 10 miles an hour. It was a pretty hard adjustment for me for a while, and I kind of got the blues, man. Kind of kicked my old lip around, and I thought, I've had all this training, of all this experience, and I'm kind of wasting it in this position. And my oldest daughter, who missed a lot of me growing up, when she was growing up because I was off doing these things, she said, "Daddy, you've done your part, and you're relatively healthy from it, and you just chill. It's all good. Let somebody else do it." And it was a pretty sobering conversation I had with a 20-something-year-old daughter who was actually seeing things for the way it was. So it helped a lot. So
yeah,
go ahead. Put things in perspective.
Well, yeah, I mean, you got to think of all the stress that your family probably had, you doing all that running a gun and stuff. I mean, that's kind of hard on the kids. It's kind of hard on the wife. It's kind of hard on people that love you.
Yeah.
Well,
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, if you're working narcotics or anything like that, I mean, it is. Yeah, you're going to have a set schedule on paper. But in the job, we call it doper's time. I mean, everything evolves around the dope world and what they're doing. And, I mean, Brent, there's you've got an informant who goes, "Hey, I'm meeting this guy at 3 p.m, and we're going to buy, a quarter ounce or whatever it is." And it's 7:30 at night, and, we're still trying to do the deal. And the next thing you know, it's 9:30 at night. You're still trying to do the deal, and you're supposed to have gotten off work at 5. I mean, that's just how it is. And then, you're going to type a paper for a search warrant. We're hitting him at 6:00 tomorrow morning. And then it's just how it goes. So there's a lot of time spent away from home in those narcotics deals. And even if you've got Saturday, Sunday off, or Sunday, Monday, or whatever the days off, some doper calls you and goes, "Hey, man, there's a load coming in on Saturday at 2 in the afternoon. Guess who's coming in Saturday at 2 o'clock to work? Brent."
Yeah. Birthday party or not, you got to
Yep,
go.
that's it. That's it. Just talking about your daughter talking to you about finding this other type of position. I mean, Brent, obviously we've never met each other, but I just retired. I was a cop for 25 years here in Tulsa, and
Mm-hmm.
I did narcotics and all that stuff at different points throughout my career. But I was speaking at an event not too long ago up in Baltimore for a bunch of police officers. And before I got up there and spoke, I did my research on kind of what I was going to talk to everybody about. And it was just about the stress of the job right now, especially, post George Floyd and the anti-police rhetoric that's out there and things like that, how much tougher it
Yeah.
is for us and stressful. But one of the things I found, there was a study done a few years ago, and it talked about the average male, with a career in law enforcement compared to a male in the civilian world. Our life expectancy for cops, career cops, is 22 years less than somebody in the civilian world. And,
Yeah.
I mean, that's literally a difference between, us seeing, a kid getting married, a grandkid being born, things like that. And it's just tough. It's so whole point of that is it's good at that latter part of your career to, hey, I've done everything. I'm going to kind of go in cruise control now and extend your career and your hopefully a healthy life.
Yeah, I hope so. It was for a long time. My whole identity was
Yep.
not having an identity, more or less, and being working narcotics and stuff, and that was like you talked about earlier. Everything gets put on the shelf. The job comes first, and you're missing these things, missing these events in your life, and that only goes so far, and
Mm-hmm.
it leaves a big empty hole where family should be. And now that I'm on the correct side of it, it's a whole lot easier to lay down and go to sleep at night, and knowing that if the phone rings in the middle of the night, it's because my coon dog got out. I'm not fixing to have to
Right.
get up, and
That
I'm not
happens to
fixing
us
to have
all the time.
I'm not fixing to have to get up and be gone for a week.
Right. Right. Well, one of the tough things about it is we in this job, especially if you're good at the job, at your good undercover type of deal. You think,
Mhm.
man, I have to be the guy that does this, and it's not an ego thing. It's just like,
Yeah,
man, I'm good. I want this to be done. I don't think the next guy can do it as well as what I'm going to do. And again, it's not for the glory of, hey, I got this bust. It's just, you're invested in it, and we see it time and time again as we get older. Other people that retire, whether it's a homicide sergeant that retires, like, God, Lee, there's nobody that's going to be able to replace that guy. Well, guess what? That position's going to get filled, and there's going to be somebody that steps in and does the job.
yeah.
And we have to accept that, just knowing, hey, there's someone behind us that's going to step up and do the exact same thing we're doing just as good.
Oh yeah, yeah. And it's just hard when you're in that position. It was it was actually what transitioned to me from patrol to narcotics when I went from wearing a uniform to looking like I look now. It was it was hard for me to see. You work radar and you work speed enforcement to prevent accidents, but you assume that you do prevent accidents, but you don't really know. But if I lay my hands on 2 kilos of cocaine, that that I'm going that once it gets adjudicated, it's going to be destroyed. I know that 2 kilos did not get out on the street, and
Right.
it was the difference in reactive law enforcement, I guess, and proactive that what led me into that to begin with. So it was, I don't know if I guess more of a feeling of not accomplishment. Maybe it is a feeling of accomplishment,
Sure.
knowing that you actually did something viable that you could actually lay your hands on and say, I know that stuff right there is not going where it doesn't need to go.
Well, you alluded to being a state trooper, and well, I've
No,
always had.
No, he never said it.
that yeah, that was my
Uh,
brother
uh,
worked for the state police. Yeah, I was a deputy sheriff.
okay, well,
Hmm.
can how did you get into that deputy role, and where was that role, and what kind of jurisdiction did you have, and how many people were you overseeing in that role? There's a lot of
Oh,
questions.
I went to work for the Bradley County Sheriff's Office in Warren, Arkansas. That was the home where I went to high school, where I grew up. In my home in Warren, Arkansas, at that time, I probably had a population of about 7,000 people. Um, County-wide, there was probably 15,000 people at the most, probably closer to 12. And there was three of us. There was a sheriff and three deputies, and deputies were usually on, by themselves. So your backup was 10 minutes away and Jesus, and that was, you pretty well on your own. So you learn pretty quick when you're 15 miles from town in the middle of nowhere, and there's folks that are, duking it out, that you're going to have to handle situations a lot differently than you would if, you roll up with a fire team full of folks that can start issuing out, black eyes to folks if they're not doing what you want to. I think it makes you a little more of a mediator instead of strong arming. So it was you learn pretty quick, that you got that your verbal skills are probably going to save you quicker than your fist will.
Well, so this county had 12,000 people in it, right? And
Yeah,
I'm from
I'm
this.
guessing.
I'm from this area, right? How do you go undercover when 6,000 of those people are your relatives?
Well, when I went undercover, I was in charge of the drug task force. I left the sheriff's office, and I was appointed by the prosecuting attorney as the head agent for the drug task force in the 10th Judicial District, which encompassed all of southeast Arkansas, and I think it was like 5 or 6 counties. And then I had 4 agents working for me, and we all, being a supervisory agent, I also had, made cases myself. So there was 5 of us working in 6 counties, and we spread pretty thin. But that's how I did it. I never worked undercover in any place that, I had footprints in growing up. Always
And
another
this
part of the state.
and Brent, this task force, I'm assuming it's kind of one of these that's made up of other, whether it's deputies or municipal officers or a state officer or something like that from the area, from those 6 counties you're talking about.
Yeah, they were all full-time positions except for one. We had because most of those small departments down there, if they've got a guy on the payroll, they need him. They can't spare a guy
Right.
to go to be a full-time assigned somewhere else when they need him for patrol there in their municipality or their county. So they were all state mandated positions except for one, and Monticello Police Department, and where you're talking about, Howard, your folks are from, they donated a man who was actually, that guy is one of my closest friends ever. He is the chief of police there now, and hopefully fixing to be their mayor down there soon. So
Did he show up in a Bo Weevil t-shirt?
he's actually from Hamburg, so I was actually surprised he had shoes on when he got there.
My grandmother lived in Hamburg.
Nice.
Actually, a little place called Milo around there. But yes,
Milo.
I know. I know of all these places. So
Yeah.
during your time on the drug task force, what'd you get into?
Oh man, I tell you, would have been the early 2000s, and methamphetamine was the hot ticket. Everybody was a meth cook, and
Let's say, yeah, those one pots everywhere.
oh yeah, man, and it was we were averaging at one time, about 3 labs a week, and for a short stint, and for the long period, a year or so, we were doing 3 or 4 a month, and it's the craziest thing I was ever involved in. There was everybody was a cook. Everybody, the internet was new. You could get everything off the internet, everything you needed. You could go to Walmart and you could buy everything you needed to cook meth in Walmart. And before you had to sign for sinus medicine and all of that, it was wild, man. It was absolutely buck wild down there.
Well, how'd you find those? So this area that for our listeners out there, this area is a bunch of. If you've ever used paper in your life, it's probably come from this area. There are pine trees everywhere. It's
Mhm.
Georgia Pacific is the big place down there. If you haven't had the privilege of smelling a paper mill, you haven't lived. You know.
Or a meth lab.
Oh, a paper
Yeah.
mill makes a meth lab smell delicious, and I don't even know what a meth lab smells like. But there are a few people and many trees out there. How in the hell did you find these meth labs?
Man, it's just like you find anything else. Loose lips sink ships, and folks get to talking, and they get to. We ran a big um, circuit of informants. We got a lot of the local municipalities helped us, man, because they're stopping folks on traffic stops, and they get a pocket full of weed, and folks know that they'll trade weed for meth any day. So they just work it up the chain, and we'll get a call from a deputy saying, hey, we got a guy stopped down here, and he's either going to jail or he's going to talk, one or the other. So it's like you talked earlier, Ryan, about getting up and going on Saturday when you was fixing to take the kids on a pony ride. You got to load up and roll out and talk to some yahoo down on the side of the highway somewhere that wants to trade information for jail time. And you was talking about smelling a meth lab. It reminded me of a deal a little story I can tell you if you want to hear one.
Hell yeah.
Absolutely.
We were invited up into a county that we didn't normally work, but the task force that worked that area up there was just absolutely overloaded with work. And this sheriff was on the edge of the county. It actually bordered our district, and he called me, and the task force folks called me too and said, hey man, if you can help this guy out, help. We absolutely don't have anybody to spare. So the sheriff calls and says, look, I've got some reliable information. These folks are going to make a big cook. It's going to be at this location. It's going to be within the next 2 days, next 3 days, I think he said. And it was actually a perfect storm. We had just finished a couple big cases up. We didn't have anything going. And so we jumped on it. So it was all of us and 2 state agents went up there, and we laid on this place for about a day and a half waiting on we built us some hides out in the woods, and they were supposed to come to this gravel pit and do their cook. And after like hour 36 or whatever, when everybody there would have made the didn't take a shower list, Ryan, we they finally show up on doper time, like you called it. So they roll up in there, and they've got the components, and we jump them, and we get them all arrested and everything. And we've got all the stuff spread out there on the tailgate of the truck. And the sheriff that called us, he shows up. We call him to come in and look at it. We're waiting on the lab disposal folks to come out of Little Rock to come get all that stuff. And the sheriff was up there, and we're showing him, all right, and the sheriff, here's where they stripped the lithium out of the batteries. These are the strips right here. Here's where they had the ephedrine right here, the pseudoephedrine that they've got it in this soak, and in this container right here is one of those. If you remember those little workmate drink igloos, like you carry water in, it's got a big thermos top on it. I said, now in this container right here is anhydrous ammonia. Mm-hmm. Somebody said something, and I turned around to talk to them. When I turned back, the sheriff's got the lid unscrewed off that anhydrous. And I'm saying, Sheriff, don't. And about the time he stuck his nose over there and took a whiff, and he passed smooth out. Hit the
yep.
He hit the ground. Of course, we had an ambulance on standby, so they come in there, and they're getting the sheriff coming back too. And it could have been bad, but it wasn't. It didn't. He just overcame, and he passed out. But when he woke up, the first thing he said when his eyes opened up was, "Who kicked me?" He thought somebody kicked him.
Because surely he wouldn't do something so dumb like that.
So, but he when he come to and we told him what happened, he's like, y'all don't say anything about that.
Yeah.
I got an election coming up, so
and now you're on a podcast telling all about it.
Yeah, I didn't say what county it was. So,
hey, don't they steal that stuff from like fertilizer? Isn't that what do they get?
Yeah.
That adronious.
Yeah. Well,
Androgynous.
I mean,
Hey,
like
one of those.
like he was saying back in the one pot days. I mean, when they changed the pseudoephedrine laws, it made it. I mean, we don't even find one pots at all anymore, and
Nah.
not to by. I mean, we really don't. But I'll tell you this. Here in Tulsa, I just texted a guy that by the name of Mike Griffin from our narcotics unit, who was kind of like our meth lab guru. Um, but I asked him, what was the most we had in 2011? We had just under 500 meth lab call outs here. And that's
Mm-hmm.
call outs. That's not total. So you would show up someplace where, whether it was a disposal, I mean, and I'm not exaggerating. There might be 30 or 40 one pots, which are typically, 2 liters
Right.
that have been all dumped somewhere and we have to go clean it up.
Yeah.
And it was so bad for, here in Tulsa or, Arkansas and a lot of other parts of the country. But at the time I was in the gang unit, and gang units, guess what? Gangsters don't mess around with meth labs. That's not a meth lab world. But we had so many of them that our narcotics unit, our day shift and our evening shift, and even our vice unit, they were overworked because it's all they were doing. That all of us in the gang unit, we had to go to meth lab school, the DEA school, and just to understand the whole process of it and how to clean them up. So about I think it was every 5 weeks, 6 weeks, we're the various units at our division, we rotated through who was on meth lab duty that week, as we called it. And the week that you were on, you knew you were not doing any other type of investigation. We weren't investigating shootings. We weren't out on the street stopping gangsters.
You were just mopping meth
That's
labs.
all you do. That whole week, you were doing nothing but meth labs. And it is. And just, as he was talking about, I mean, it's the lithium out of lithium batteries, pseudoephedrine, the little cold packs you buy for that you toss into that the medical cold packs you pick up at Walgreens. They cut those open. I mean, it's
a bunch of damn poison.
And that's what baffles me. Like, and I'm sure people will take this wrong, and I don't intend it to sound wrong. Like, I understand people that smoke weed. I understand someone's like, you know what, I'm going to try cocaine. I mean, obviously it's illegal. I understand, but meth or heroin. I mean, it's like there's so much information out there of how fucked up these are and the chemicals that are in it and so forth. I just don't understand people trying it because it's so bad.
Yeah, it's bad news, man. I've seen, and you see I've seen some of the really good people that get on that stuff, and whether they get on it for a lot of folks that we got or I had dealings with, said they got on it to, to lose weight, to help them study, stay up late, work, whatever.
Drive trucks.
Yeah. We run a search warrant. We had assisted U.S. Marshals on a felony warrant one time on a guy that was trafficking. He was actually for a marijuana trafficking case, and Marshals were serving the warrant, and we located him. I was in Bradley County. He was living in the middle of the woods. So we slip up out there, and they want to hit him, like at 3:00 in the morning when he's good and asleep. And my agents and I, we trained for, entry and search warrant stuff. So we're going to be the approach team, slip up there and secure the house. And then the marshals will come up there and kick the door. And as we slip up there, it's 3:00 in the morning. This guy's out in his garage painting his car with a paintbrush.
Yep. Oh.
So just because he's run out of stuff to do, so he's
the number of yards that got cut in the middle of the night, or, engines that were taken apart and cleaned for no reason. Hey, let me ask you this, Brent: how much porn did you find on search warrants around meth labs?
It was only a meth lab if it had porn, Indian artifacts, and a dream catcher hanging on the wall. A blue funnel. A blue funnel.
A blue funnel, yeah. I mean, and literally, this is, it's funny to say, but I cannot tell you how much porn you would find on these and sex toys. I'm talking, and just so we're talking, these guys, men and women or whatever, they're awake for hours or days on end, and they are so fidgety, and you find like 300 cell phone chargers or cell phones that are taken apart and all in a drawer together. But guys that literally work on sex toys, like you would find a whole drawer of them, they're taking them apart. And I'm dead ass serious.
I'm gonna figure out how this works. That thing's spinning on the end.
Yep.
He, I had a guy that turned out to be an informant for me, and is doing really good in life now. But when the first time that we arrested him, he said, there was one time about a month ago, He said, I knew y'all had those listening devices in my house. And he said, I took all the paneling out of the house. And then I
Oh,
tore
shit.
all the sheetrock out. He said, and I could never find them. He said, I'm curious if you'd tell me what they were. Of course, we didn't have anything in his house.
Of course,
He's just
yeah.
paranoid. And I said, well, I can't tell you what those things are. He said, well, I understand. He said, but one thing, something else that really bothered me. He said, when y'all were laying out there in the backyard and I was shooting at y'all, he said, I
Oh
didn't get,
shit.
he said, I didn't get close to anybody, did I? And I said, no, you didn't. I said, but
You're good, buddy.
I said, did we shoot back? He's like, no. I said, well, we probably wasn't there. And
Yeah.
he's like, no, I know you were there. I know you were there.
You're like, buddy, you're still alive here talking to us. We were not out there.
Yeah,
Man,
we weren't there.
Yeah, Brent, that's another thing is I always said it, man, the tweakers, back in the day, man, just incidents like that you're talking about. They were the dudes that scared me. I like seriously, like gangsters, guys that are doing robberies and shooting one another and typically responsible for the homicides here in Tulsa. Those guys don't scare me.
Yeah.
But it was guys that were on dope.
Because they were completely unpredictable.
Absolutely.
You didn't have a clue. And
No clue.
You didn't have a clue what they were doing, but they didn't have a clue what they were going to do.
Yep.
I mean, just from one minute to the next. And those guys, I've seen them be up for. We had a guy, this guy in particular, on that case when he was telling me that information. That dude was up like 3 days. Yeah. I don't know how long he'd been up before we got a hold of him and got him in an undercover apartment that we had to try to dry him out. But he was up for 3 days, after we got him, before we could finally lay down and go to sleep. So I mean, I don't see how those folks, how they do it, how they last long. And a lot of them don't, but that guy thankfully got his life squared away, and he and another one have actually been did well, and it was worth going all through it to get those folks squared away. So
absolutely. Yeah. So just obviously the people that watch this on YouTube or here on the channel, they get to see your handsome face. And for those that are listening on other platforms,
he's got more gray in his beard than I do.
We're rocking a nice little gray beard. We got some glasses similar to Howard's. It's almost like Howard and looking at himself in a mirror here.
We probably are kin.
Yeah.
Could be. It is Arkansas,
Eskimo brothers.
That's it. Maybe. He's rocking some coveralls. You call them overalls or coveralls? What do you call them?
Yeah, here in America we call these overalls.
Overalls, okay. Overalls. Yeah, little and his gray T-shirt. So you've done undercover work yourself. Mm-hmm. Kind of, like as you talked about, kind of the back end of your career now. So, man, what's some of the stuff you've gotten involved with? You yourself doing undercover, because it's a lost art. Most cops just manage informants. They themselves don't do much undercover work.
Yeah. And I did, I did that too. One of the, when I was imagining informant, I'll tell you a story about this, and then I'll tell you one about one that I did myself. But it applies to why people sell dope. They get addicted. In the dope game, they're either addicted to the dope or they're addicted to the money. But both of them will always, eventually bite you in the hind end before it's over with. And we had a guy that we were had targeted and was trying to run informants on there and just could never get in there. We couldn't get anybody to introduce one of us to get to him. And finally, man, we had a guy that had been an informant before I even started to work as a police officer. This guy had been a snitch for a long time. And he occasionally could be able to buy from this guy. So we wired him up and sent him up there, and he goes up and knocks on the door, and the target comes to the door, which was, a freak accident. Normally it's one of his minions that comes to the door. And he comes to the door and he says, he talks to the informant, calls him by name. He says, I know you working for the police. And the informant pulls $100 bill out of his pocket. And in the next breath, he says, but I see you got that money in your hand, so I'm going to go ahead and sell to you. So his addiction obviously was to the money and not the dope.
Yep.
And of course, he wound up going to prison over it. But there was a steady stream of traffic in and out of there. It wasn't like this guy was losing money, but he could not let $100 walk away and was going to risk, knowing that guy had been an informant in the past. He just had to risk it to get that $100. But
And what
one
was
of
the
my
end result
favorites.
for that guy?
Oh, that guy, man, we had so many cases on him. He took a plea for like 30 years.
Jeez, yeah,
he was going to get the hammer.
Did he end up going to Cummins?
Yeah, I'm sure he did. Usually everybody goes there at some point. They call that gladiator school over there now. That's where a lot of the young offenders go, and it's pretty well free for all over there. But another guy that I worked this guy hand to hand, and he had come up in the information, and I was down in El Dorado. I was living in El Dorado at that time, which is on the border of Arkansas and Louisiana. And this guy, we knew who he was, but didn't have a name for him. And he was moving meth everywhere, and just everywhere they always come up with this crazy name for this guy, and I can't remember what the nickname was, but old Bingo over here, he's the guy, he's the man, he's the one that's selling the good stuff. And I finally found somebody to introduce me to him. And after about the third meeting, he agreed to sell me some, but he's still not giving me his name. And this goes on. I start having a weekly meeting with him, and I'm spending $100, $200, $500, $700, and I'm buying some weight off of him, and he still's not telling me his name. And I drive up, my undercover truck is an old work truck, and it's got tools and stuff all in the back of it. And I roll up there one day, and this guy's name, he meets me, and he goes, "Man, what kind of work you do? I never asked you what kind of work you do." I said, "Well, I run a construction job." I said, "We're working out here west of town." There was a job going west of town out there, and I said, "I'm working doing some subcontracting out here with this tree planting stuff." He said, "You ever need welders?" And I thought, well, that's a crazy question. Why would you ask me that? And I said, "Yeah, I can use a welder. You know somebody needs a job?" He said, "Man, I do. I weld." He said, "I can weld a gnat's ass to a window pane." I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Man, we're short a welder right now." I said, "I'll bring you an application. Are you interested in going to work?" He said, "I'd love to." So I said, "Look, I'll be back next Thursday, regular time. I'll bring it with me. Meet you right here. I want my standard order, and I'll bring you the application." He's like, "Fire, man, fire." So I go back to the office and type up an application. And
Microsoft Word is such a beauty.
Yeah, I meet him back the next week, and I hand him a pen, and he fills out everything I need for the search warrant. It's his social security number, name, address, a whole ball of wax.
Hey, buddy,
like,
part of this application process, we just need a picture, and I need your fingerprint so we know what you on it.
Yeah. Do you mind taking a P test? So we go back, man. That's one of the funniest things I ever did.
Easiest case to handle, huh?
Yeah, the prosecutor was just chomping on us. Y'all got to find out who this clown is. You got to find out who he is. And he was just one step ahead, but we got him finally.
Well, Sean, this would be one that you would say, you need to find something else to do. You ain't very good.
Yeah,
at
you're
this
not very good at this. You're not a good dope dealer, man. You need to find a new job.
Yeah, that was always fun. Like, I'd always ask him, "What do you want to be when you grew up?"
Yeah.
Like, "Oh, I wanted to be a cowboy." Well, you should have stuck with that, because you ain't very good.
You're not very good at this.
You're not a very good criminal.
Just to again throw a story out there. The year that I was in narcotics, I was a supervisor of the unit, so I didn't do any undercover work. I tried to grow a beard. I did not look like either one of you two.
He looks funny with a beard.
I looked like a cop with a beard. I mean, that's what I looked like. It's like everyone looked at, hey, that's a cop growing a beard. It was pretty obvious. But we had a couple guys in my unit, and still undercover stuff they do to this day, so I'm not going to name them. But we had these Hispanic bars that were selling a lot of cocaine out of, and it was pretty much literally just Hispanics that were in there. So, if you're a white guy and you walk in, it's like, the scene out of a movie where the music just goes and stops and everybody's looking over, They looked the part, though. Both of these guys did. Both of them country boys from, out here in Oklahoma. Best narcotic cops I've ever worked around. One of them now he is actually used by federal agencies across the country. He has flown around to do undercover stings now because he is that good at it. And he's been to all these federal schools for undercover. And just like I was saying earlier, man, it's a lost art for cops to do undercover work.
Oh yeah.
But the construction thing was exactly what this guy was doing, and that's what he said. He said he was running a construction crew up in Kansas, and that's why he kept increasing the size of his orders. He kept buying from these guys because he was, he had family in Tulsa. He had a girl here in Tulsa, is what he would say. So he was popping into this bar, just kept buying bigger and bigger dope that he was taking back to sell to the guys that were working the construction side up in Kansas. And again, it's that money, man. Even though they know to be leery of these guys that shouldn't be in there, they just kept building and building it. And I mean, it was the bartenders that were selling it, that were part of it, the people behind the, that were just there daily. They were selling it and so forth. And it ended up being a fantastic case. We had a whole bunch of Hispanic bars, closed them down. But one of the funny things was one of the two guys that worked undercover, one of the girls working in the bar developed an interest in him. Like she really liked him. And she would, I wish I could say his name because just the way she would say it was so funny amongst us.
Make the name Howard and say it the way she says
Howard. It was something like that. But he, the boots, we call them the cockroach killers, the Hispanic cowboy boots that have the long, pointy, curled up.
They're elf boots, man.
Yeah, literally when they get dressed up, man, these gangsters the cartel-esque type guys, they do, man. It's the belt buckle that matches the hat, the whole thing. They're cowboys. Yeah. And she brought him some cowboy boots like that after, and this investigation went on for like 6+ months. And so he would rock these things around, man. Oh my God. It was so funny. And this cop's he's got red hair. He's like this red hair guy with a red beard, and he would rock these boots.
Good looking guy.
Oh my gosh. It was so funny.
Oh,
that's hilarious, man. Hey, well, time has flown. We're almost to the end. You want to kind of close us out? Tell us what you're doing now. I notice you have a hat on called Bear Grease.
Yeah, I help with a podcast. It's a meat eater podcast. A good friend of mine, and he's just like a brother. Clay Newcomb does this podcast. It's a documentary style podcast every other week, and then the off weeks, me and a couple other folks, including Clay's wife, Misty, usually, and his dad, and a couple other guys will get together and we'll discuss what the topics were. What we got out of the podcast the week before. So it's very popular, man. It's just growing like a weed, and Clay does an outstanding job with it. It's very interesting. It's not just, hunting and fishing. He did one, had a lot of interesting topics, maybe about Daniel Boone, about arrowheads. He actually did one, just got through with a 3-part series about some old hometown turkey poachers down where he grew up in Southwest Arkansas. And, it was really interesting, man. These folks were absolute turkey serial killers, but they were well regarded in.
Would you say that again, please? Just say that we've never had those words put together or used at all on this podcast. Please say that again.
Turkey serial killers.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
But they were well regarded. I mean, if turkey didn't stand a chance around these folks, and it didn't matter if it was turkey season or not, but they were well regarded people around the community, and so there was the crutch of the whole thing was, how could people that violated the law like that be thought of like they were? So it was really interesting. A lot of good opinions, and I thought they were thugs anyway. I didn't care. So, but anyway, that was the general consensus. They were pretty good folks, and I'm sure they were, but to me, they're still poachers.
So I got to ask, what exactly is Bear Grease?
Yeah, that's the $1,000 question.
It sounds very inappropriate, if that's the word I want to use.
Or the name of a meth dealer. Hey, I represent Bear Grease.
Yeah.
Bear grease is the render out of, if you take bear fat, you take the bear fat off a bear and cut it up in cubes, put it in a pot and apply heat to it, it will render down into bear oil. And bear oil at one time was a commodity that was more valuable than anything else. It was traded, and people could cook with it. I cook with it. You could light oil lamps with it. There's a lot of uses for it. And at one time, it was Arkansas was known as the Bear State back when in the middle 1800s, because there were so many bears here, and the market hunters or whatever came in and just about extirpated them from the state because of how valuable they were. Now they're coming back, and so the
we use
bear
electricity.
The Bear Grease podcast has the documentary part, and then we do every other week we do the Bear Grease render. So we're kind of rendering down that podcast and just our thoughts and what people think about it. Really popular, and a lot of folks are digging it. It's a lot of fun.
There you go. Where can everybody find Bear Grease at?
Man, you can find it anywhere. iTunes, Spotify. It's out there. It's anywhere you get a podcast, you can get it.
Nice. Well, it was a pleasure having you. We really enjoyed having a nice Southern Arkansas cop on. We haven't had any of those, so that's a big plus for us.
Well, absolutely. I appreciate you guys having me on here. And the thin blue line, the first responder line. It is real. That family's real, and
yep.
I mean, you guys are my brothers. This is the first time I've seen either one of you. I've listened to your podcast. You got good stuff out there, but there's no doubt that you're my family, because the Hogs are playing downstairs in the College World Series, and I'm sitting up here talking to you two.
Yeah, that is a big deal.
The Sooners are in it too, buddy. Don't forget. So remember that.
Okay, we'll see.
All right. Hey, let's go. Boomer.
Hey, thank you.
Sooner.
All right, buddy. Be careful.